Hello and welcome to day one of my lockdown diaries. Whilst the whole of Scotland and the UK is in this lockdown situation and staying at home, I'm going to try and make at least one video every single day. And today's one is going to be about something that a lot of people do ask me little hints and tips for, and that is how to take really cool underwater photos. Now this video is not going to get too technical. I'm going to try and keep it simple, and I'm not encouraging anyone goes out and tries them right now. Maybe wait until it's summer, when hopefully this lockdown is over, and also when the light is much easier. Light, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. First up is gear. What are you going to shoot with? Well, I do have a big underwater surf housing for my Fuji X-T3 salty surf water housing, but I don't really use it that often, especially not for photos. And what I like to do is keep it really simple, especially when I want to go out and actually maybe enjoy a swim and also get photos. I just shoot everything on a GoPro. This is a GoPro 7. I also use a GoPro 5. Really good cameras. There are lots of other action cameras around that are different kind of price points. I've only ever used GoPro, so I can only ever speak about GoPro, but it's really good. I really recommend it. If you're only looking to get one to take a few photos and like a little bit of video, I'd get a 5 rather than a 7. It's going to be cheaper and it does almost exactly the same kind of things, and it's going to get you basically the exact same results. Now I'll talk about the settings I use in a wee bit, but for me, one of the most important things is location, location, location. I'll break this down into lochs or lakes, rivers and the sea. Now when it comes to lochs, in my experience, some of the best, clearest water is to be found up in the mountains. So it does take a bit of effort to get there, but what you want to look for in a loch is what's on the bottom, because when you walk in, that gets kicked up and that kind of goes up into the water. If it's peaty or muddy, or there's lots of trees that kind of leave bark in the water, chances are the water there is going to be a bit darker. You want nice clear water, ideally that's got a stony bottom, sometimes sandy. This photo here was taken in Loch Ann in the Cairngorms National Park. You can see how crystal clear that water is there. It's also really cold. But bear in mind that lochs with sand on the bottom can be really silty and the sand can go up in front of the camera. As you can see here, this photo in Loch An Corran y Poich in Applecross, you can see all the sediment in the water, so that's not ideal. A good thing about lochs is, depending on what you're using to balance your camera, there's not so much movement in lochs generally like the sea or like rivers, so it can be easier sometimes to line up and get a shot. Now in my experience, rivers can actually be the easiest places to get photos. You want to find, again, a really clear river. So again, not somewhere peaty. Often streams that are up in the mountains, not necessarily that big, but ones that have waterfall pools can be really good. So a waterfall pool has often lots and lots of small stones and gravel and it's getting washed through. It can be really clear. The one exception to that is when the river's been in spate or there's loads of water. So water's coming down, it brings down loads of wood and all sorts of small bits and pieces. It also brings down lots of air in the water and it can be quite hard to get a photo then. Now the sea can be a lot of fun to take photos in, but location is really important. Swimming at a beach, you might think, wow, the water here is really clear, but when you try and take a few photos, you start to realise there's maybe more sand in the water. So shooting at sea, you want really calm, settled conditions, ideally for a few days, so that the sea state is nice and calm and it's not been kicking up any kind of sand or bits and pieces. This photo here was taken in the Crowlin Islands and you can see it looks really nice and clear. Ideally when you're taking photos underwater, and especially in the sea, you want to be not that deep. The deeper you get, the darker it gets, so the closer you are to the surface, the easier it is to get light into your picture. When do you want to take a photo? That's really important. Summer is a brilliant time, especially maybe in Scotland and the UK when it's quite dark over winter. The sun doesn't really rise that high. It can be better in summer because the sun gets right up. Now, you don't necessarily want a really sunny day. That can be nice. You can see in this photo here, you see the light rays breaking through the water there, and that can be really nice. But for someone like me with my skin tone, actually strong sunlight can make my skin look really overexposed underwater, and that's not great. It's hard to fix sometimes. So you want a bright day, but a bright cloudy day can be actually ideal. So when you're underwater, the light is a lot darker than above water, and especially if you keep going down. So to try and get a photo of yourself swimming, you've sometimes got to kind of fake it a bit. Shutter speed underwater generally is longer than it is above water. The camera needs to keep the shutter open longer to let more light in. So if you're swimming, your movement's going to be blurred. So if you want to get a photo of yourself swimming, say breaststroke underwater, you've got to do it really exaggerated. And sometimes, if you know exactly the shot you want, you can almost just hold position, you can fake it, and that's going to make it easier. Fair enough, if you want to have a proper swim and batter past your camera, you might get a good shot still, but you're making it harder for yourself. And that brings me on to the settings to use for your camera. Now I'm talking about the GoPro because that's what I use. It's got really good function where you do a time-lapse photo. So you can set it for different times. What I like to do is you can set it to take a photo every 0.5 seconds. So it's taking 2 photos every second, which is great. It takes lots of photos. So you can actually just go and enjoy your swim, and you might get a photo, you might not. Great. If you definitely know what you want to get in a photo, you can make it not take so many photos. For example, if you take a photo every 5 seconds, that can be easier because in the GoPro then you can make it take photos in RAW and JPEG. RAW means you can edit your photo a lot more afterwards. If you're taking a photo every 0.5 seconds, it's only going to be JPEG, so it's good still, but it doesn't give you quite as much. And if you really know what you want, you can make it every 30 seconds or something, so you're going really far from the camera. Always shoot wide angle as well. You can see this photo here in Feshy Bridge. I wasn't actually that far away from the camera. Always shoot in wide. In the GoPro you can set it to linear or kind of narrow where it zooms in a bit. Never do that because you can do that on the computer afterwards. It's the same lens taking the photo and it's just doing it in the camera. You're just losing out. Always shoot wide. Even if it looks a bit funny at the edges, you can fix it on the computer and you can make it look brilliant. Another really good benefit of taking the GoPro is you can actually just have a swim. So lots of my favourite photos I've gotten from just messing about with the camera, enjoying a swim and just seeing if I can get a photo, not planning to go out and get one, because then even if you don't get a photo you like, you've enjoyed yourself. With a big camera, it's less about swimming, it's more about getting a photo, so it can be quite a frustrating process if you don't kind of get the image you definitely want. Now, let's talk a bit more gear. How exactly do you take your photos, some people say? I've got a variety of ways of doing it, and I'm going to let you in a few secrets here now. So here are a few things you should use, you should get to take photos with your GoPro. Number 1, the floaty handle. This is really good, and you can buy like a kit online where you pay a tenner and you get loads of different adapters and attachments and bits and pieces. This is one of them. You screw the GoPro into here. What you can do is you can throw it and it'll land in the water and it'll float and it'll hold the GoPro just under the surface of the water. And you can see from this shot I got, it holds it in a really nice position close to the surface, so giving it lots of that light, but also you can catch a really wide image and get some really cool shots with that. The one thing is, it will move around quite a lot because you might not realise it, but often the surface of the water is moving a lot. So this moves a lot. So it's not going to stay in one position, it's going to keep turning around, it's going to move all over the place. That's why you want to be taking lots of photos maybe. Makes it a lot easier to get one good one, and lots of them might be slightly skew a wee bit. Another really good reason to shoot wide. You're shooting wide, it means you can crop in the edit and save a bad image. Now, get yourself one of these. A tripod. Now this is obviously not a tripod designed for a GoPro, this is a tripod designed for a proper DSLR, and you can see maybe on mine it's been totally battered over the years. I've taken it right into the sea, right into many lochs and rivers, and it's pretty salt damaged, but it does the job still. The good thing about this is it's heavy, so I can use this in a river. Now you can attach the GoPro on top via various different ways. I use sometimes a chest harness, I'll show you that in a second, and once I put this in the river, it's not moving. If I put it in a loch, it's not moving. If I put it in the sea is going to have to work really hard to blow this over. So the good thing about this is when it's in position, it's staying there. And because of the legs, you can take it out to quite deeper water and still have it near the surface and get some really different angles and get yourself maybe deeper in the water than you would with, say, a rock. Now, I don't have a rock with me, but what I'll often do is go out for a swim and only have the chest harness with me. This. The chest harness is a brilliant thing because it's all bungee and rubber, which means you can find any kind of rock. I use one that's roughly about the size of a hand or both my hands, and I just strap this round it any way I can, lock it into position, and then that makes a brilliant way to take photos, especially in waterfall pools. There's loads of these rocks kicking around. Swim down, you've got to be able to hold your breath a wee bit, place it on the bottom, tweak the angle a little bit, and it's not going to move, there's no chance. It can also be really good for getting those shots low where you'd like to swim over the top of the camera. You can angle the camera to point straight up. That can be a really good angle. Now obviously you're not going to carry a rock with you, and one thing to remember, if you look at this photo here, because the rock is going to be on the bottom, you're getting a really low angle, which means anything in the foreground is probably going to be in the photo as well. So bear that in mind. If you don't want the rocks that are on the bottom to be in your photo, you want to use something a bit bigger, like your tripod, something like that. One thing that's good fun to use, it's a bit of a gimmick but I do use it sometimes, is this, a dome. So I use it for this photo here to get that over the water, under the water look. And it's okay, it's good fun, you can buy them online, they're quite good. One really important thing to remember if you are shooting with one of these is they're going to catch a lot of reflections and also going to get water beading on here. So if the sun's out, always have the sun behind the dome. You want to have the sun at you. Anywhere else and it's going to start catching reflections all over this plastic bit of the dome. And also use the environment, use what is there. So this photo here, I'm swimming under some ice, and what I did there was I had a float, a kind of swimming float, and through that I'd rammed a selfie stick with the camera stuck on that. I jammed it in between two icebergs. It wasn't moving anywhere. Now if it wasn't for those icebergs it would have been tricky to get that shot because the camera was going to be floating on top of the water, and like I say, with the movement in the water it would have been all over the place. I probably wouldn't have got the photo. So use the environment, use what's around you. If there's a tree, if there's kind of branches under the water, if there's stones that are at funny angles you can sit your camera on, probably using a rock. If you sit your camera on something it's going to fall off unless it's got weight behind it. Use the environment, use what's there. Now once I'm done, I take my photos and I do a little bit of editing to them, a few tweaks in Lightroom. I'm not going to go into detail about that, but what I do is usually put the contrast up a bit, make the whites a bit whiter, maybe make the blacks a bit blacker, because often your photos can be a little bit washed out depending where you are. You can also lose a bit of colour in the water sometimes, although that can be cool, and your white balance can be a little bit off depending on the water conditions. One thing I also do is I just leave the camera on auto white balance, auto shutter speed. It makes it a lot simpler. You can go into a GoPro and get a lot of manual control, but I'm not talking about that in the video today. If it's something you'd be interested in, I could talk about it a little bit more in future. The main tip I've got is go out and take lots of bad photos. The only reason I've ever taken good photos is because I've taken loads and loads and loads of bad photos in the past. I've taken photos that never worked. I've been out swimming maybe for like 20 minutes, taking hundreds of photos, been excited to see what I get, and had nothing to show for it, nothing of any use. You know, everything's blurry, there's stuff all over the camera. It still happens today. I'll still go out often and take lots of photos, maybe get one good one, get two good ones, and the rest are a write-off. I hope this video has been of use to you. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe and share it to anyone else who you think it would be useful for. Hopefully it won't be too long till we're back out enjoying the water, getting some amazing underwater photos. If I had to break it down to 3 tips, it would be get a really cool location, hold your swim position, and take loads and loads of photos. Good luck.